All right, so here we are with Greg Sandkamp. Mr. Sandkamp, let's start at the beginning of your life here. Way back in the day, talk a little bit about you growing up, brothers, sisters, mom, dad. Were you originally from Hastings? Because I know you grew up south of town as well. So just go back to the beginning, talk about your childhood growing up, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just kind of put some notes down as I looked through your thing that you sent me here. Yeah. So where am I going to go here? Okay. Okay. Like, where am I coming from? I grew up in a little town of Vermillion. I actually was in Cottage Grove and Inver Grove Heights for a while. So we didn't move out there till I was in fifth grade. So I could have been a Simile wrestler, maybe. Probably not. Anyway, so K through 4 at Cottage Grove and Inver Grove is where I went to school. Then my late elementary, I went to the little church school out in Vermillion called St. John's Catholic Church from grades 5 through 8. So there was no middle school or junior high for me. And we were there. There was no Phi Ed classes, and it was a different kind of deal. And it was really different, but I really noticed when I came from the public school to that school, we were in a classroom with two grades. So the teacher taught fourth grade for a while, and then you had to do some work, and then the fifth graders did some work. But anyway, I was like almost 2 grade levels ahead of the of the parochial schools. It's like everything that we did, I had done a year before. It's like it was a pretty boring time for my life, you know. I think I did pretty well in school, so it's like, okay, I know all this stuff, and it was kind of like it was kind of terrible a couple years. And then we did not have Phi Ed ever. So all you did was you go outside and recess, and all it was a big field out in the back, and there was just a barrel where you could go up in the barrel and do like barrel rolling, like log rolling. And then there was one bar where you could hang upside down from. There was no swings, there was nothing. It was a different kind of a world. But anyway, so that was my late elementary, and then finally when I got into high school, I went to Hastings High School from grades 9 through 12 in that old building. That's where the schoolhouse hoop is. That used to be my high school, and I guess that was junior high too at some time. But I was there in 9th grade. I graduated from Hastings High School in 1971. So that's been a long time ago. That's my school kind of a little thing. And want me to go right into the next stuff, or do you just want to ask questions, or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, I'll just ask you the questions here.
Are you going to follow like the questions you sent to me?
Yep.
I
Yeah. What about your parents too? I know you had some. I think you came from a pretty big family growing up too, right? So
yep.
Talk a little bit about your mom and your dad, and then brothers and sisters as well growing up.
Okay. Well, mom and dad and had 7 kids, 4 boys and 3 girls, and we lost 2 brothers along the way. You know, I'd lost a 2-year-old brother at one time to an illness that he had when he was young. Went to the hospital one night and couldn't breathe, and they couldn't save him. And my other brother was killed in a motorcycle accident. So he graduated from high school. He died the year he graduated. Pretty sad stuff. I still have 1 brother left and 3 sisters. So, and most of them are around here, except they are. They're almost all around here. So I get to see them a lot. Okay, so that's in mom and dad. They grew up around the Cottage Grove area and Park High School, and my dad went to Park High School. My mom went to some little private school somewhere. Big families that they came from too. So I came from 7. My mom's family was 7, and my dad's was 12. And so that would mean I had 19 aunts and uncles, and they all got married. So then I ended up with 38 aunts and uncles. And then I was doing a little math, and I go, I got a lot of cousins. So I looked at the cousins, and back in the day, those Catholic people had big families. There was about 4 of the families on both sides that had 8 or 9 kids.
Jeez.
And then a few of them had 7 and 6. A small family was one that had 3. And then, so that's kind of it. So I kind of added them up, and I have 90 cousins, 90 plus. There's more than 90. I kind of didn't know exactly how many. So that's a huge family. So, you know, that was the deal. And a lot of, like they say, in that family was around Park Cottage Grove area. So the big family. And so anyway, then I lived in Vermillion for those from 5th grade on. Mom was kind of a homemaker, really good at it, great cook. And dad, he was a pipe fitter, steam fitter kind of a guy, but he was a jack of all trades. He was a carpenter and a welder for a while at some point in time. And he grew up on the farm doing farm work. All the boys were just working on the farm over on Great Cloud Island over by Cottage Grove. So anyway, that's the deal. My dad did sports, so he was able to get some sports in, and he played a little football and basketball and track and field. And he ended up being a Marine Corps sergeant, and then he came back and he started doing pipe fitter, steam fitter kind of work. So anyway, my brothers and sisters, I'm the oldest of that crew, and most of them live around here. Yeah, so that's about it. And I have some nieces and nephews, and some of them are going through school here and at this time. So that's kind of cool. Anyway,
So
so that's just a little background of that big family, and we had quite the family gatherings, and we had a lot of ball games and things with them too. So okay.
do you think with your dad being a pipe fitter and a steam fitter, is because I know you're a very handy person yourself, do you think that's where a lot of your skills like that came from your dad?
Oh, from dad for sure. Yep. And then dad, when he wasn't doing his regular job, he was at home, and would revert back to his old carpenter and welding skills. So he was always he's a really helpful person. He loved helping people. So they needed something fixed, he'd fix it. He needed something built, he built it. He helped them do remodeling and things. And when you're a young kid, sometimes you just want to watch TV once in a while, or you want to play. But he'd always say, he'd holler in the house, "Dad, come out and help me." I go, "Oh no." So then I'd be out in the garage learning things. And at the time I didn't really, here's how you measure, here's how you cut, here's how you hold it, here's how you nail, here's how you screw this. And I learned things just not even knowing I was learning them sometimes. So as I got older, I'd say, "Oh, crap, I do all this stuff that he did now." I'm always doing projects. But yeah, I'm glad I learned a lot. I can do a lot of repairs in the house. I actually was a contracted building my own couple houses that I've done. So I can do a little bit of a lot of different things. And I'm glad my dad taught me that stuff. So
Nice. So next one then for you, Mr. Sandkamp, is so this is mainly kind of a sports podcast too. So think back to your days growing up, either
yep.
in Vermillion, Cottage Grove, kind of wherever you started to. What do you think one of your earliest sports memory was? And this could be playing catch in the backyard with your dad. It could be an actual sports team that you were on too. So
Mm-hmm.
just think about that earliest sports memory of you growing up. What do you think that would be?
Um, well, as a little kid, you kind of remember the ball being tossed back and forth, a little bit. But then I think kind of once I moved to Vermillion, then it actually felt more like a sport. I would get together with some of the boys that I went to the school with there, and we played ball in the backfield. And you're going to hear a lot of old time stuff and kind of like sandlot kind of stories that we'll get out of Vermillion here. But the little school in Vermillion is right across the street from the church. And then behind that was an open field, and then the cemetery. So we had an open field to play in. So we would, and you learn how to be creative too. And you learn how to referee your own games. You don't really need a coach, and you learn a lot of things that way. But we played ball back there, and you just threw something down for a base, and after a while you ran the bases so much they made their own spot in the dirt. So you just that's where the bases were. So we played ball, and we on that field we could play kickball and we could play baseball. And there's one bat and maybe one or two balls. You didn't want to ever lose the ball, but it was old. But we had the ball, and we played. You just make up your teams and like the sandlot kind of thing. So that's what we do. And then the other thing is we got a little older. We did some football. We kind of started liking football and things. And we didn't have sports out there, and we weren't couldn't do middle school or that kind of sport yet. So we were getting older and becoming teenagers. Right, we wanted to do some of that stuff. So we would get our own football games together. Somebody had football, and we just go out into that field again, and then we make up teams. And it wasn't no powder puff game. We played full contact tackle football with no pads, nothing, just running and going. And I just remember one year I wrote them all down. It'd be amazing amount of broken bones. Somebody broke two toes. We broke a shoulder. We broke a leg. We busted some noses, and it was all rough stuff. A lot of blood, but that's what we did, and we loved it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that went. So that's how the first earliest memory would probably just be playing ball with those guys. It's like a little sandlot game, and yeah. So anyway.
Nice. What
Yeah.
about your first job growing up? What do you think? Maybe paid
First
job,
job.
or I know you said obviously we talked about you working with your dad a lot too. So what do you
Oh
think
yeah.
maybe your first paid job was growing up,
Yeah.
or just a job that you can remember growing
Yeah.
up?
I wrote that down. My first paid job. Dad put me to work. You never didn't work. So as I got a little older, he said, "Well, you can help me, but now you can also start mowing lawns in the neighborhood." So I went around the neighborhood, and Dad got me some jobs mowing lawns. So just a push mower, no rider, no self-propelled. It was just push that baby for hours. Some people had 3-hour lawns, and you get a few bucks, and that was kind of my first money as a preteen. And then when I got to be a teenager, then I was like, okay, you got to keep working still. Dad didn't believe you sitting around. So I got a job out on a farm outside of Vermillion. And that became a lot of work. And I remember getting $1 an hour and working 12-hour days a lot and baling a lot of hay. and pitching manure and that kind of stuff. And yeah, you worked your butt off. You learned how to work. And part of that, I got strong. That's how I got strong. I didn't lift weights in a gym, but I was one of the strongest kids around. And when I came to ninth grade, I built pretty well. I had a six pack, I had big shoulders, and I was really strong. But anyway, so that's my job, working on the farm for many, many hours. And yeah, and that encompasses a lot of work, and tossing, feed sacks and hay bales and the whole deal. So I appreciated the hard work that farmers did. Now
Awesome.
they have a lot of other equipment that you
Yeah.
don't do everything by hand anymore. But anyway, so that was first working experiences.
Awesome. Last question then to get some more background information on you. What do you think? You could pick a couple of these if you want to answer, or you could pick a couple from each category. What do you
Yeah.
think your favorite movie is, your favorite food, your favorite kind of music that you listen to, author, or time of the year?
hmm okay. And I can go way back to, well, I had black and white, you had black and white TV, and you had to get up and you had to turn the dial. So we didn't get to the movies very much. The first movie I ever saw, that was a big deal for us at the Catholic school. They got a bus and they took the fifth grade kids to see The Sound of Music. I'd never been in a movie theater before, and that big screen, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. And that's a good old movie anyway, but not always my
I
favorite.
love that movie. I love watching it with my
It was
kids.
really good. Well, a cute movie that I liked and I could relate to when the movie, the Sandlot movie when it came out.
Mhm.
That's kind of a classic, fun one, and that was kind of a lot like our life, growing up in Vermillion. And then I don't know, I like movies like Rambo, the Rambo trilogy. I just loved those movies. I don't know why. It just came to my head when I was thinking, oh, what has Tim got for me? Rambo movies. I like a lot of movies, but I just like action movies
Mhm.
sometimes. And that one just kind of real. I like Rambo. He's pretty buffed and probably been a good wrestler. I don't know, but anyway, like Rambo, and I like outdoor movies once in a while too. And yeah, there's a movie that also was an author of mine that I like too. They made a movie. It was a author. You think he had that on there? Jack London. It was like The Call of the Wild. I like
Mhm.
some of those outdoor kind of things, and White Fang, and that was kind of a good movie too. But so there's other ones out there. I like the Bourne movies, the action ones and stuff. So that's kind of some of those, and yeah. So, and then I said that, a couple books. I like the Jack London book. And then there's another outdoor guy, Jim Kilgarty, like Big Red and stuff, those kind of animal movies. And then books written by an author more of our generation was a former Hastings teacher, Cliff Jacobson. And I love the outdoor things. And he's a big time canoeist. And, he took tours all over up in Canada and Alaska and everywhere. And he's a big time guy. And he wrote a lot of books on canoeing and camping and just general outdoor stuff. And he taught science for many years here, but he's still alive. He lives over by River Falls, but yeah, he's got a ton of outdoor books that I read. So anyway, moving on what else? Food. Yeah, that's always a big one, food. I love my mom. I thought about the food I like, and I always love my mom's home cooking, and you miss it when they're gone,
Mhm.
and you got the recipes, but sometimes you just can't make them like mom did. She didn't always measure. They just grab stuff and throw it in, and they know what they're doing. And she made great wild rice soups and stuff, and I loved all her cookies. Man, when mom always made, we always had dessert too. It's like every meal had sugar, and you had dessert for every meal. And your cereal, you poured sugar on it. And so we got to like sugar, and I still haven't gotten over that completely yet. But she made great pies and stuff. And Dad did a great job on the grill with steaks, and we always had good meat from the farm and stuff. And so he made steaks. And just my go-to thing whenever and I love pizza too. So that's kind of my food.
Nice.
Favorite time of year is the fall and the autumn. I love that time of year. It's just my
Mhm.
favorite when the mosquitoes are gone, it's still cool and sunny, and it's dry in the woods. That's a great time. But I like changes of seasons too. I like when spring comes. And winter was always when we could go inside and be on the wrestling mat and not get cold. That
Mhm.
was a good time too. But anyway, so that's some of my favorite stuff.
That's awesome. So, I think you kind of said that you weren't really growing up in Vermillion then. You didn't have a lot of sports, organized sports, I should say, growing up. So, when do you think one of the first times you were part of organized sports? Was it ninth grade when you came to Hastings High School?
Yeah, I could tell you a couple little stories about what
Yep.
we did. We told you about the sandlot kind of things, but um, let's see. Okay. And what we did and it's kind of like, that was this Fayette and elementary Fayette, you just play, you get outside and we just take those kids and you did elementary well. They just love to play,
Mhm.
just go play, you didn't need a coach all the time. But so a lot of what led into sport type things was just our basic play. Some of it was just playing hide and go seek in the darn graveyard and stuff. And then we go swimming in the Vermillion River, and we built rafts and we put rafts on the river. So we did that kind of stuff. We had some great sledding hills. We did that. And we had an ice skating rink next to the fire hall across from Kiefer's Bar, and we had to flood it ourselves and take care of it and maintain it. And there was an older fellow that kind of supervised us, but he was named Charlie, and Charlie would get strokes once in a while. They always said, well, you guys got to watch Charlie. If he goes down, you got to put a stick in his mouth. So, I mean, I just think of stories to him when I was going through this, and I think of my old stuff. Oh, yeah, that Charlie was always in the warming house, and we'd always say, go check Charlie. And one time he did have a stroke, and he was laying there.
No way.
And we had to call somebody and prop his mouth open. And,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, you remember stuff like that? We'd be out flooding the rink, and one guy go check on Charlie, and then we'd have to shovel the rink. So we did skating. Most of us didn't have hockey skates because they were expensive. We got some old hand-me-down figure skates, but we skated a lot, and we played the pump hole where you skate and catch people coming across. We played tag, and we did play hockey. And we didn't have real nets or anything, and a goalie stick was really expensive. So we got some old hockey sticks, but we made a goalie stick out of a big board, and the bottom board was about 2 feet across, a big solid piece of oak. And that baby, you could hardly score on anybody with that thing. It was 2 feet long. But anyway, that was one of my sports that we did out there. And then we did sandlot ball, pickup baseball. I said that, and no equipment hardly ever. My dad did put up a basketball hoop on the garage because he played basketball and he liked that. And he thought, well, maybe I would want to play basketball. So we never learned really how to dribble. We just shoot. Some of us got to be just good shooters is what we did. And then we played, 21 and pig and horse and lightning, those kind of little games. And that's what we did once in a while. So we got to do that and the tackle football and then baseball games. Then again, no equipment, but yeah, and the hockey. We did ski a little too. There was no hills in Vermillion other than the sliding hills, but somebody had a pair of old skis and somebody had a 1968 Ski-Doo snowmobile. We'd go out in the big fields and then we'd get pulled, and you would ski like water skiing with the snowmobile. But it was a plowed field and you'd hit the big bumps, you fly off, and it would hurt like crazy. So that wasn't, I didn't love skiing that much that way. But anyway, that was the sports in Vermillion.
Nice. And so then walk us through. So you get to Hastings High School in about ninth grade then. And is that so do you think that was when the first time you played organized sports was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
That was on my list here.
So yeah. So then walk us through that. Yeah, start up in about ninth grade then, and what kind of sports you played. And if you want to walk through each year you think of high school, 9, 10, 11, 12, and go through the sports you played each year, and then any accomplishments you had individually, and then any accomplishments you had with the team as well.
Okay. Okay. And then I just had a little bit on the end of the other stuff, and it says like, what did they learn? If you had one of your questions was, what did you learn from the element, that kind of stuff? Well, we learned how to get along with each other. We had to learn how to work together and play fair. And we had to learn how to pick teams, and you learned how to, and then you really got the bigger words like communication, teamwork, organization. That stuff all it just kind of came from that. Mm-hmm. And then, you had to get along, be good sports, and you never had a coach, and there were no FIADs, and so you just had fun, and you played and you played and you played at night and after school. Then we got to high school, and that was a different deal. So in Vermillion, a lot of kids didn't do sports. Like at the first year that I was there, not one kid did sports. They just, they worked on the farms, or they just went home and did whatever they wanted to do. And then they ended up with an activity bus that we had to do. So I could stay after school, and I had to ride an activity bus home. And there was one activity bus for the whole country, the whole country area, south of town. So when I got an activity bus, my day still was long. The bus driver would go out south, and we'd have to go down to Meesville, and then we'd have to go out in the country there in Ravenna and Meesville, and then it'd come across, and he'd go, Meesville, and then caught across to New Trier, and then we'd have to go to Hampton, and then finally I was the last guy left off in Vermillion. And I'd been on the bus way over an hour. It was kind of a long night, and kids didn't really like doing that. But I did that so I could start my ninth grade sport, okay? And I don't know if I would have, it kind of tied into FIAD. I never had FIAD before, and I kind of got led, and we did FIAD, and that was kind of cool. We had games and stuff. It was pretty fun. And then my dad said, well, you want to try a sport? And I said, well, okay. And so he got me some basketball shoes, and they had canvas top red ball jets, and he got them 2 sizes too big. He said, well, you'll grow into them.
Hmm.
And then I was going to play basketball. I guess he kind of told me, "Oh, that's a sport." I really didn't know about wrestling then, other than Crusher and Mad Dog and those guys on TV, but in black and white. But so I going to try basketball. Well, I could shoot pretty good, but the dribbling thing didn't go very well. We never learned how to dribble. And then it's like, we used to play pretty rough and stuff. And it's like, okay, if the guy's got the ball and he's dribbling, I just want to take it away from him. So you could kind of like tackle him down and take the ball away, but they didn't let you do that. So you couldn't be rough. So anyway, so that led into, I just didn't love that. And that's when Don Miller said, well, Greg, you're kind of a strong kid. You want to try wrestling? And and we kind of wrestled on the basketball floor anyway. But anyway, so that was kind of a natural progression for me. Get away from the ball sport and go to the wrestling room. But I also went out for football too. I play a little football. I don't know, that wasn't, I have a story about that too. And then I ended up track and field, but I didn't do those very early. I think I didn't start any of that till sophomore year. Nothing actually till sophomore year. So ninth grade, I did the basketball. And then the next year, I think I tried wrestling. So my first year of the sports then was in my sophomore year. So I went out for football and then I did wrestling. And then I did some track and field. And track and field, if you think back, we had track and field was around the old football field downtown, and it had a big curb and gutter around it, and it was lime rock track. It didn't have lines on it. And so we had to put our lines down, the white lines. We had like barn lime. It had a little machine, and we put it around there. And then you had to take your starting blocks so they wouldn't slip. You had to put them on the ground, and you had a hammer and a big spike, and you had to spike them down. So that's kind of how we started track, and all the races start in weird places because it wasn't a 400-meter track, so you could start one race at different spots. But anyway, I did track and field. I kind of like that. I was a pretty fast runner. We used to do a lot of running out in Vermillion, just short stuff. So I was a sprinter, and I was one of the faster kids. So I sprinted and ran relays, and I was strong. So they gave me the shot put too. So I got to throw shot put and did the long jump and relays, and it was kind of a fun sport. I kind of liked it, but and I did some football, but then I had a deal where I'm going to say it, but it's like you wouldn't even hear of this anymore, I don't think. But I had to leave to ride the activity bus about 15 minutes or so before the sport ended. And football, and then sometimes you feel like you had good coaches, and some coaches just didn't work out for you very well. But I was pretty strong and pretty fast, and I could handle tackling. But he said to me, as I got a little bit older, I did the lower level football, and then when it got up to the varsity level, I was a pretty good sized junior kid, and then I'd have to leave. And he said, well, if you're going to leave my practice early, you're never going to make the varsity. It's like, oh, really? But that's the only way I got home. My mom doesn't drive. Mm-hmm. We have one vehicle. My dad works late, so I had to go home. And that was kind of a sad thing for me. So I never played varsity football.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I really think I would have done okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes you don't have the best experiences, but they're life experiences though.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so wrestling ended up.
Oh, sorry. Did you pick up anything else in the fall then instead of football, or no?
No. Okay. I played at my junior year and I started my senior year, and then I just didn't finish it. That's not like me, but I just I don't know. I might as well just go home. It was a sad time. It was tough. But anyway, wrestling was the other side of that. It was really fun. And I never knew much about wrestling, and I didn't know how I could go in. And I was pretty shy, and I didn't, I'm not from the city. I didn't know many people or anything. But and that's one of the influences I had. Don Miller was my wrestling coach, and he kind of said, "You're going to be a good wrestler," and I never knew that or believed that. And but he was a great teacher of skills, and he attracted you by, he just had a gift of gab, and he was my Phi Ed teacher too, and he was just a really good darn teacher, and I really enjoyed being around him. So I enjoyed wrestling, and then I got to get some friends, and most of my friends in Hastings were on the wrestling team, and that sport can become like a family, and that was my family away from home, is that bunch of guys. And I just remember it like yesterday being there, and wrestling was different then. And Don was a really good technician, and he was a great teacher of skills. And we had pegboards and ropes to climb. That was some of our strength things, and they were no problem for me because that's where I was strong from the farm. Mm-hmm. But anyway, it took me a while, but I learned. I got a little better every year, and had a pretty good varsity season. And I think that my best would have been if I would have had another year of experience, and I could have wrestled another year after, because when I did go to college, that's when I feel like I did get really pretty good, but I was still always behind a little. And I love wrestling on my feet, and and doing takedowns. And I guess, so that's what I ended up kind of doing. What else? What do you got next from the school sports here?
I think that
Oh,
might be about it. But
rewards or
yeah,
well,
did you have any major accomplishments in any of the sports you played,
well, for
or
me,
individual or team?
I was proud of, you know, like I say, you weren't out some little kid and you didn't have many years. So I was like, it was I wrestled a little on my junior year on varsity and then my senior year. And I was getting better all the time. So I was really improved. I was like one of the most improved kids on the team, and I was good on my feet. So I ended up having, and we got little awards once in a while, and you really treasured your first, never got an award in my life. You know, I didn't do any lower levels. I remember how kids all have tons of trophies and things. And I got the most takedowns on my team. And that was pretty cool. So that was pretty cool. That was my award. And then the memory of that I have of one of the neatest things we did, our team as a team, we won a conference title in 1971. And that was pretty cool for this group of guys to do. There hadn't been much going on before that. Don Miller came in as a new coach, took over a program that had just had nothing left. But there were good old wrestlers, and they had a good old tough team for a while. And then there was a period there before Don came that it kind of fell apart,
Mm-hmm.
and there wasn't much there. And he was brought it back. He started bringing it back and bringing it back. But anyway, we won a conference title, and that was really a cool accomplishment for us. And that felt pretty cool to be part of that when everybody's cheering, and that was a pretty cool deal.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, had great coaches, and some of my best friends came out of that sport, and yeah, that was my favorite moment, and I really liked. I always loved it. I think as I got older, I just loved. I'll just, if I can have this a second here, I grew in that sport and I loved it, but I loved being on my feet, and I didn't like the time where you had to be down all, or you had to be up. I hated the up position wrestling. I just wanted to be able to choose. If I could have chose up, on my feet, on my feet, on my feet, and then you used to have to you had to take the guy down almost inside of the ring all the time. It's like you had to be. So I had so many takedowns I could have had. You know,
And now it's completely different. Yeah.
it's totally different. We could have been on
Yeah.
our feet all the time, and I'd have loved wrestling then because
Yeah.
that was my favorite thing. But it's funny how the rules change and stuff. And we
Oh,
had
that's
three-piece uniforms back then. I don't know if you remember that. You had a singlet, and then you had to put a long tights on, and over the tights went a pair of shorts with a whole bunch of buttons. And that's a weird sport. And big white canvas shoes and headgear that never worked very good.
that's
Okay, so
awesome.
that's wrestling, but I loved it. It was awesome.
Who do you think was one of your best coaches or your favorite coaches to play for? It could be basketball, track, wrestling. And what do you think what are some of the lessons that you think they taught you?
Well, I guess Don Miller was my mentor. He ended up being my mentor. I kind of followed his path, but I just loved him as a FIAD teacher and as a coach. And he made me feel, I don't know, like I say, I was shy. He brought that out of me. He made me feel like, okay, you are a good wrestler. I never thought, well, I'm not that good, you know, but he said, you are a good wrestler. And he made me believe in myself. He helped me, got me to that place in my life as a quiet, shy kid from the country that I could believe in myself and do well. And I gained confidence, my self-esteem grew, and he was part of that. But he had assistant coach that was kind of a quiet guy, Lee Snowbeck. He died not too long ago, but he was the assistant coach. And those two worked together so well. And Don would get in your face sometimes, and boy, he would just rip up a guy. But then Lee would go over to him and put his hand around the kid's shoulder. Kid almost crying sometimes, and he'd say, oh, "Mr. Miller, he just didn't really mean that. He just wanted you to do the best you could, but you're still good. And he really likes you." So Don was, you know, it's like good cop, bad cop kind of thing, and they were both awesome in their own way. So anyway. They're a great communicator, and he was a great teacher. I love that. And then I ended up being a wrestling coach and a FIAD teacher like him too. So
Mm-hmm.
that's
So,
the guy that made the most influence in my life.
so you were saying you got better at wrestling every single year. What do you think went into that? How do you think you kind of continued on that improvement throughout your high school career? Was it
Well,
just the
I
time being
found
in the
out that
room, or? Sorry.
yeah, well, it helps to be strong. And you know, we didn't have weight room stuff, and I did it naturally out in the country. And then Don had a few things that helped us too, but we never really went in weight rooms back then. You just wrestled, and you climbed the ropes, and you did push-ups and sit-ups, and it worked for us back then. And I don't know. And then I have good balance. I found that out. I used to climb trees and go across tree bridges and not fall in the river and drown or anything. I mean, I just felt I had pretty good balance. And so I got to be pretty darn good on my feet, and I was pretty quick and strong. I was able to get away from the bottom. And I did not like riding people. I just didn't like doing that part of the sport. But I just kept getting better. And you know, I didn't have much time to learn there, but I kept getting better, and I just really enjoyed it and felt my confidence coming on. And but anyway, it was good.
So you graduate from high school. Take us through college.
Okay.
The major, any sports you played in college. So go through that a couple years as well.
hmm Okay, college. I just never knew what I wanted to do for school afterwards, and I was fortunate that I did pretty good in school. I guess I was fairly smart, and I did well, but I didn't kind of know what I wanted to do. I always thought, well, I got to do something in the outdoors. I like that. I don't want to know if I want to be in a pipe fitter like Dad or anything, but I like the outdoors. So I thought, well, maybe I want to go and do something with natural resources. So you didn't get a lot of counseling back then, and you never did to see what colleges were, but somebody said, well, Rochester has you could be a DNR, and they have a program on natural resources. So I went down. I was going to start in that venue, and I did a little bit. And then people were saying, "Oh, you'll never get a job. You can't get a job in this area." And then I just thought, well, I don't know. And then I kind of listened to that stuff, but it was something I really liked to do. But I thought, well, okay, what else do I like? Oh, I like Phi Ed. And so I did like Phi Ed. So I took some Phi Ed classes, and golly, had a weight room down there. It was pretty cool. And then I did go off for the wrestling team down. They had a really good wrestling team at the time. We had a lot of farm boys from down there, and I did go off for wrestling, and we had a really good team, and they won the junior college state champ. And I was kind of a member on there, and we had 3 guys at our weight that were really tough. And one of the kids was Vermillion state champ, and I ended up moving up 2 weight classes, and then I placed, but I didn't, I was wrestling 190, I weighed 165. And we had one guy, and then I came into college, and we were all clean shaven and everything. And we had a guy, and I was like, I started college, I was 17 years old yet, but I still started college. And we had a guy that just came out of the Marines. He's 25 years old, and he was at my weight class. He had big beard, he was tougher than snot, but I beat him one time. But I don't know, just good stories. But it was kind of fun being on the wrestling team there. And then I don't know. So I did that that was a 2-year school, and I did that. And then when that was done, I ended up well, along the way here, I got married too young, I think, and but I was still going to college, and I moved to Hastings, and I was working, and I was going to finish my education, so I went to River Falls, and I did go off for wrestling for a little bit, but it didn't get, it's like, okay, I need to work and get my education done and stuff. So, but anyway, so I got a pretty good experience with it, but that's what I did. I did a little bit of it in college, so ended up getting a major then in Phi Ed, and that's kind of led me to my job now. And I love the coaching. So that's part of my deal.
Yeah. So then start kind of right after you graduate college. I know you sub for a couple years, and you were over in Farmington for a little bit too. So walk us through, I guess, the end of college and all the way to this point. I know there's a lot of history in between those 2 points.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So maybe, we could get there, and then talk about the jobs that you've had, the sports that you coached along the way, and how many years you've been in each sport as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. What do we say? I don't know. Okay. Hobbies. Whatever. I don't know where I'm at on my paper here. So what were you supposed to say that again, Tim?
So
what do I do?
Yeah. So maybe right after you graduate college, and then the couple jobs that you've had, teaching jobs, you had a couple in between when you graduated college, and then by the time you got to Hastings as well.
Okay.
So walk through that, and then sports that you've taught, schools that you've taught at Hastings, and go through your whole kind of working career.
Okay. And then when I did graduate, it was kind of a hard time finding a job. Back in the day, they did tons of cuts, and there was not going to be any jobs around here. And I interviewed for jobs up in northern Wisconsin and a lot of different places. And at the time, I kind of wanted to stay around here. I was actually took on a project of being a contractor and building my own house. So I was in the middle of that. So I took different jobs for a while. I didn't really get into teaching for a while. I ended up working for Dakota County Parks Department because I like nature, and out at Spring Lake Park out there. They did tree trimming, and they had a sawmill, and we had a lot of Dutch elm disease. So we just cut up tons of wood and trimmed trees and worked in the parks. And so that was a full-time job that paid as much as teaching, basically, except you had to work all year. And I was able to coach. So I started coaching as an assistant with Don Miller in wrestling. And so I'd leave that job and run and coach. So I always got to coach, which is good. So, I wrestled and then went through college. But and even my last year when I was in college, I wasn't wrestling. So I came and helped Don Miller, and I coached wrestling here too. Just, sometimes volunteering, sometimes as an assistant, but I did that. So I was able to work at the Parks Department and coach for a while. And then a job opened up in Farmington. And I went over and interviewed, and they said, well, we got a head wrestling job and part-time track and field and a FIA job. And the guy that was in the job, he just up and left. He went and worked in the business world. He'd been here many, many years, and he just up and resigned and left. And so you might have a job for everybody. It was a long-term sub job for the first year. Well, it was like a month into that long-term sub job, and the other guy quit his other job and came back and subbed in the district till the next year, and then he got his job back. Anyway, it was weird. But anyway, then I taught a second year there, and in health. I thought I was all done there. I was out looking for work again. They called me back right before they said, Greg, we got a job opening and teach life science and health, and you can still coach. So I'm sure I did that. So I just stayed about a page, a chapter ahead of the kids in those two areas. But anyway, so that's it. And wrestling was fun. I got thrown into the fire being a head coach, and we had some tough competition. We were in Section 1 with Owatonna and all of those southern schools, and back then they were powerhouses and stuff, and Albert Lee, and then we had up here, we had Apple Valley getting good at the time, and Simley and Burns. It was tough, and we had just a little puny team. And then I had a bunch of rough kids, but I learned how to be, I don't know, learn about other kids in a different world. And some kids, I had one kid that he didn't even live at a house. He was floating around all the time and living with one of the wrestling buddies, and those kids were in trouble a lot. They came from a trailer court halfway between here and Lakeville, and just some rough lives. There's some rough kids on that team. And they were good kids, though. They were good kids, and they got in trouble a lot. But I had to try to keep them straight, and they loved taking me fishing and ice fishing in the winter and stuff. And anyway, but they were just rough and tough, and I enjoyed that. And we did okay. You know, we had a couple kids in the state meet, and my first and second year there, and we had some kids that were winning the conference in section once in a while. I don't know, we were tough, but as a team, we had a hard time competing though. We had an interesting match back in the day. Scoring was different then, you know, and you you didn't get the extra points for the team score, and there was only 12 weight classes. So I don't know if you think, but we won. Let's see, how did I go? We won 4 matches, and the other team won 8 matches, and we tied them. We pinned all the kids, and we only lost 3-pointers in all the rest of the matches. We'd end up tying one of the Simley or Burns, one of those teams at the time. But it's kind of interesting. You win 4 matches and you tie.
Wow.
That was kind awesome. Of cool. I just remember that was kind of neat, because they thought they were going to kick the crap out of us, but they didn't. Anyway, so I don't know, just some pretty good experiences. And we had one kid on the team, one of my best kids, and he really had trouble finding a place to live. And his dad never watched a wrestling match till his senior year section meet. And his dad was drinking and everything, but he came and watched his son once, so that was pretty cool. And he beat every Apple Valley kid he ever wrestled every time, and he pinned them most of the time. The Galleva kids and all those. I don't know if you remember any of those names. He was really tough. His name was Johnny Myers. Tough little kid. This rugged kid. But anyway, had some good memories of the rough kids, but they were fun. So anyway, and then I ended up finally getting a job in Hastings, part-time job, and then I just kept hanging out with the part-time job, and then it became a full-time job. And I always thought when I got out of college, well, I'm going to be a high school wrestling coach and a high school teacher. That's what I was going to be. Well, I ended up at Kennedy for 23 years, and I did fall in love with teaching the little kids. They were really fun, and it was nice that I was able. They allowed me to coach, so I always could coach, and I was coaching wrestling. And then, partway through my career, or I don't remember exactly when that was, they needed help with track, and so I helped. There was a female coach here that coached for a while, and I kind of co-coached with her for a year, and then she went on or did something, and then I got a head job here and assistant wrestling and head job, and working at Kennedy for a while. And so that just kept on going and growing. So that's what I did. And along the way, I coached a lot of different sports. I coached wrestling, track and field. I did soccer. D-Wall and I were the head soccer, or he was head coach. I was assistant varsity soccer coaches for a while. We had that job. I did middle school football. That was a lot of fun for 7 years. I coached middle school volleyball for a while. And then I've done wrestling, track, and cross country. So I've done a lot of different sports.
How many years total have you coached for in Hastings? Did you teach?
Well,
teach in Hastings,
I actually coached before I taught. So I'm a little over 40 years.
40 years?
I actually started coaching in the 70s here, the late 70s.
Wow.
My first head job in 1982, I started with track and field as a head coach in 82.
Wow.
And he was my assistant. It's amazing how things changed back from that time. It was like there was just 2 coaches for track. Well, now you get 6. You got field event coaches, you got jump coaches, you got throws coaches, you got distance coaches. It was like me and D-Wall, and I just got to know D-Wall then, and he was Mr. Ski coach. He's a young kid. And so basically D-Wall coached the distance runners and I did everybody else. I did sprinters and throwers and jumpers and the whole work. So it was pretty different. And our first year we won it. We won the section title. Our very first year.
Oh, wow.
Was pretty cool. We had pretty good teams. So John, how do we do that? I don't know. We just had good kids. But
so 40 years.
Anyway, that's been about 40 years of that.
Yeah.
And over the years, I think I got about 30 some in wrestling too. So.
How many athletes do you think that is then after 40 years of coaching?
Well, in track, and we actually had bigger teams in the past because kids weren't always doing club sports. You know, you did 3 sports a year. We at one time had close to 100 girls out for track.
Oh, wow.
And boys too. So it was easy to have in the 60s, 70 once in a while, I think 50, and then we're now into the 30s and stuff. I would say we get, just say 40 years times 50 kids. That's 2,000 kids I coach probably in track. And that's just the one sport.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
And wrestling 30 years or so. And, you know, I did middle school here I was a middle school head guy for about 12 years for a long time with Chris Slade. And a lot of kids on there, I don't know. So I've seen a lot of kids in the sports. Thousands.
And how many years were you a teacher in Hastings for? Just about the same, about 40 years?
Yeah, some of it was part-time. I subbed for a couple of years. I was a long-term sub once, and then I was a 0.6 and then a 0.8, and then finally, so yeah, it wasn't quite 30 years.
Okay. Oh, well,
or 40. Awesome. It wasn't quite 40. It was 30 something.
Wow.
I did Farmington. Anyway, so it's a long time, Tim.
Yeah. So you retired about four or 5 years ago now. So walk us through, I would say, a couple different things, and walk us through your family. So your kids and your grandkids and things like that. So walk us through your family, and then I would say, let's talk about that first, and then let's fast forward to retirement and what you've been up to since you retired.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, yeah, in the time that I was here, I had 4 kids and 4 wonderful kids, and love them all, 2 boys and 2 girls. My girls, my one daughter, Jonna, did some track and did some basketball a little bit, and both of the girls liked more artsy, crafty kind of things, so they kind of went that route, and then music and stuff, and so they didn't compete in sports through their senior year, but my boys did. They did a nice job in their sports. They did really good. Joe and Jason were 3 sport athletes, and they did football, wrestling, and track, both of them, and they did a really nice job. And Joe got to play on the state championship football team when he was junior. That was awesome. That was pretty cool. He had a good career. He won some conference titles. He went to state 3 years in a row. He's on a team that took 3rd in the state 1 year, and did really well in his sports. And then he did some sprinting and track and field. And I think he kind of did that to stay in shape and just be with some buddies and just be out for a sport there. And he did that. And Jason was a great football player too. He ended up having a horrible injury. He was like the number 1 receiver in the conference by a lot. He never dropped a ball that was thrown anywhere near him. He was awesome. But he did, like I say, he did a fantastic football. He was a wide receiver and a cornerback. But he did well. But his senior year, he was leading the conference in receptions and things and touchdowns. And he was at a Sibley game, and he got kicked in the back of his calf. And it was kind of that, and he got pulled out of the game. I was like, oh yeah, he just couldn't. He was really hurting, and he thought it was a bruise. And the trainer said, well, just come back Monday and we'll look at it. And I said, but I looked at him laying on the couch, and his leg got huge. And I said, I think we better go to the hospital. I don't know if he broke the leg, but he had a weird injury called
compartmental
compression syndrome is what it was called. That's where the muscle just blew up really tight, and it was cutting off the blood circulation, and they had to relieve that pressure. So I ended up having to take him to St. Joe's Hospital. Doctor said, I'm going to put like a tire pressure, gave it a needle and put it in the muscle, and if it doesn't go away, I'll have to do surgery and release that. And when I do that, the hole's going to open, the calf muscle's going to blow out. I'm going to have to put it back in and sew it up. The good thing is you're going to walk, son. And the bad thing is you're just lost the rest of your football season. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was a tough time. But anyway, he had a great year there. But he was really a good wrestler, great on his feet. And but he just couldn't get to the state meet. We had a good team, but he took 3rd in the section 2 years, and he was one of the best kids in there. And his senior year, he beat 5 kids that were section champs from all around the state. He won every other wrestling tournament he was in during the year, and did really well, but just didn't get there. But I was pretty proud of them. Did a nice job there. So anyway, that was my kids and their sports. Now I'm still living in Hastings. I'm a retired FIA teacher, but I'm still coaching. Going to do that a little bit longer yet. I don't know how long. Every year I evaluate that. But I'm going to coach track this spring if we have it. I think we will. So anyway, so that's kind of where I'm at. And got 4 grandkids now. And my granddaughter is in middle school, Lila. And my grandson is just started kindergarten. And that's weird to start kindergarten and not really be in school with a teacher this year. But he does little things. So he's in wrestling now. He says, Luke's my coach, Grandpa. I'm going to show you how to my stance. And so it's like, wow, it's all coming back. He reminds me of my little boys running around. But yeah, time just flies by. You just know that. It's like it just was a blink of an eye. So anyway, what you got next?
So, well, I guess looking back at then your 40-year coaching career and over probably close to 40 years of teaching as well, what do you think one of your favorite or your most memorable moments was from teaching or coaching?
Okay. Well, I just think, well, when I reflect back on when you're a young coach and you win titles and stuff and you're doing really good as a team, well, that's pretty cool stuff. But then, as you get, those things are always going to be cool and neat, but then it's more about the relationships and more about knowing the kids and, kids are also different, but they're kind of the same in a lot of ways. And it's just to get to know the kids. And now the cool thing is you get older, now you see these kids grow up, and now I'm coaching different generations. I'm coaching the daughters of the mothers that I coached before. And those girls, they got tons of kids in their family, and just hearing the success and where they live around the country and around the world and what they do for jobs, some of the people I've had. And, it's just really cool when you can run into a former athlete, especially one that's who's gone a long time. And I don't know. I just think back, and that's the reflection I have. And then I think of just, well, you start to forget things too, just some funny things that happen along the way, and some kids that had tough things going on in their lives, and you maybe help them a little bit through that and see how they got through it. And I don't know, everybody has a story, and it's cool to hear some of their stories along the way. And yeah, that's just neat. It's just cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's amazing. I mean, sometimes I just think back at, holy cow, where does life go? And you start reflecting as you get older, like you're in this different place of your life here now. And I don't know, but it's all good. I just appreciate that, getting up every day and having another day and being healthy. And then, yeah, and kids are different now, and they are. I mean, back in the old days, I used to run against them on the track all the time, but it's like, holy cow, I couldn't even do that anymore. But so
I would say the next
I don't know, in favorite moments. So yeah, just winning those things and just seeing, just seeing the improvement in kids, and just seeing when they get through a tough time in their life and how they get through it. And yeah. And always feeling like you helped them if they had a question or they got something wrong and they wanted to talk to you about that. And you feel like you're more than just, X's and O's and skills and stuff. Like, oh, there's way more to this job than,
Mm-hmm.
and, but you take it all on, and you got some, it's just good. It's just,
yeah. Next question then for you. You could take it either 2 different ways. So looking back, you had 40 plus years of coaching experience. If you could give your high school self one piece of advice, what do you think it would be? Or if you could go back to one of your first years of coaching and you could give yourself a piece of advice, what do you think it would be?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I wrote down advice for all kinds of people here.
This is for yourself then. So either when you were in high school, for yourself, So when you were in high school, or when you first started coaching. So after 40 plus years of experience, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah. Oh, for me, it would be to, have some confidence and find your passion. What do you really like? And just give it 100%. That's what I would do. And be kind and respectful to other people. And that's going to go a long way in your life. And what else did I have that I thought? And then just my advice to, myself as a coach or parents or coaches is just be invested into your kids and who they are as a person, and not just the athlete. And that would be, I don't know if you had a question. One of the questions we had written down was
Mm-hmm.
for what we would say to parents and coaches too.
And we could go into that too. Yeah.
Oh, we're going to, okay. But me as an athlete, I don't know. I just, just be confident in your abilities and be patient with yourself, and don't get down on yourself if you have a bad day, just bounce back. And Yeah, that's what I think. I needed to be told that I was okay as a person, and that I was an okay wrestler, and that, to be confident in your skills. Don't be afraid to take that shot and take a guy down. Just get after it, and if you make a mistake, it's okay. That's the one I had a hard time with. But
Yeah.
but I hated making a mistake in wrestling. I hated that. I had a hard time with that. If I made a shot and somebody took me down, I was like, oh my gosh, I did not like that.
Hmm.
So then you find a way to get out of it. But
Yeah.
so
So
that's
then kind of same question then, and you might have already said some of the same things. If you could give advice to parents or coaches, if you had two pieces of advice, what do you think that would be?
mhm.
And this is 40
Well,
plus years of experience here. This is probably the most experience we've had on the
I could have a
podcast.
lot,
So this is a lot. Yes.
but I just said, okay. Yeah, parents and coaches, you just, like I say, be invested in your kids and who they are as a person, and not just as an athlete. And then just keep that balanced, and then and just give them praise, encouragement, and praise for your kids. And I don't know, I don't push them all the time. Let them kind of choose what they want to do too. There's a lot of things out there,
Hmm.
and be really sensitive to that. And a lot of times kids are just going to try to please you, and maybe you think they should be in that sport or whatever, but and maybe they have other ideas, and just help them find their way and be supportive all the time. And then the other thing with them is when you're not in that sport, spend quality time with your kids outside of the sports arena, and sometimes we get busy and we get on a weekend and kids got all their weekends taken up with a club sport, and you're just sitting in a lawn chair, and that's not all the quality time. You got to find the quality time too. It's not all about that. So that's what I would say to those guys. And for athletes, I'd say find your passion and be confident and give it 100% all the time, and just be kind, respectful of other people. So,
No,
just,
that's very well said.
yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Mr. Sandkamp, that's all the questions I got for you. The last couple of things here is just about you. If you have anything you would like to
Yep.
share, or anything I didn't ask you, or anything you
Yeah.
want to talk about, the mic is
Mm.
yours and you could go for it.
Okay. Well, the last thing is that okay, I get that final thing. Okay. I
Hmm.
just want to thank you, Tim, for having me on here and do this, and made me really think about my life a lot. And a lot of things come back. You forget things too when you're old, but it starts coming back a little. You need to be refreshed a little bit. But I thank you for doing that, and I thank you for what you do for kids too. I was able to see you take over down at Kennedy, and you had my daughter too, or
Hmm.
granddaughter, didn't you, for a
Granddad, yeah.
while?
I
Yeah.
had Lila. Yep.
And I just appreciated that you were soft spoken and you cared about the kids. And that's the thing, is you need to care about the kids, and they need to know you care about them. And I appreciate you did that, and all the students at high school here. And I think you just have that little extra thing too, that you really care about them, and that's important. And you're a good coach too, and a good teacher. So I
I
thank you for
appreciate
that.
it.
And the last thing I would say here is, well, my final word would be, okay, life lesson. Oh, that was life lessons. That was another one I wrote down. Just from all the stuff you do, just work hard, be positive, and be respectful. That would be one. And the takeaways, and I guess I would say final words is find what you love to do, find time to rest, enjoy nature, love, or laugh and have fun, and love God and your family. And yeah, that would be it. So
Awesome.
that's
Thank
life.
you so
That goes
much.
by fast, man.
That's
I think I
awesome.
hang on sometimes coaching because it keeps me a little bit younger.
Yeah.
Uh, so anyway, I
Awesome.
think that's all I got, Tim.
Perfect. Thank you.